Okay, welcome to Thursday Night Live. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise. So I don't know if you heard it, but I heard like the intro music
Thursday Night
playing
Live. I'm your
twice.
host, Dr. Rita Louise.
Okay, so hang on one second.
I heard like the intro music playing twice. Okay, so hang on one second. I heard like the intro music playing twice. Okay, so hang on one second. I heard like the
Woo! Okay, so now I'm laughing at myself. So I had my YouTube page open, and it was open on the live stream, and I'm hearing the music in the background, and then I'm talking, and there's this delay, and it's like, where the blankety blank blank is that coming from? It was from my YouTube page, but it is gone now. Okay, it just goes along with how today's been, but it's a good day because tomorrow is Friday. Thank God. Well, we have a great show tonight. So the topic brought to you by Bradley George is he made this suggestion and he wanted me to talk about Ouija boards. And so that's our topic tonight. Are Ouija boards really as evil as people seem to think, or are they misunderstood? And if there's a topic you would like for me to cover during this opening segment, please do, send me a message on Facebook or put a comment in the, not in the chat, but in the video part, and I will add it to my list. And maybe you too will have your topic covered on the show. Okay. So I'm going to make the assumption that this group knows what a Ouija board is, but for anybody that's not familiar, a Ouija board is basically a flat piece of wood, and in 2 rows, there are all of the letters of the alphabet, and then there's the numbers 0 through 9. Sorry, there's a bug right there. 0 through 9. There's a spot that says yes, a spot that says no, and then at the bottom of the board, it says goodbye. And you take something called a planchette, which is kind of a teardrop shape. In the modern ones, they're plastic. I don't know what they were originally, but plastic. And there is a viewing window in it so that 2 or more people can put their fingers on the planchette and they can ask the Ouija board a question, and the planchette will glide along the board, going to different letters and spelling out words. And so the letter that is being chosen usually will show up in that little window. So the Ouija board was actually, and this was an interesting piece of information. So the Ouija board actually was developed in the late 1800s and came out of the whole spiritualist movement. Now, originally, part of the spiritualist movement, or what came forward in the spiritualist movement, was the use of seances to communicate with the dead, because that was one of their core beliefs, is that when you die, you didn't die, and that people on this side of the plane could communicate with people on the other side of the plane. And so seances, this was a very interesting little tidbit fact. So President Lincoln's wife would conduct seances in the White House in order to communicate with her son who died in the Civil War. And so that was like 1860, 1862. So that whole idea of being able to communicate with the dead from a spirituality perspective goes back that far. But it was in the late 1800s that the Ouija board was developed. And the creators thought that, doing the seance, like that whole ritual, took a really long time, because you were constantly waiting on spirit and waiting for them to tap out letters. And They wanted to find a faster way in order to create this connection, thus the Ouija board. And it was a paranormal product that became really, really popular really fast. So it was called the Ouija board, or the wonderful talking board, and it was advertised as having mysterious powers. And it was produced by the Kennard Novelty Company. And what's really kind of cool is the sister of Mr. Kennard used the Ouija board and asked, well, what's your name? And that's where Ouija, the name, came from. Another interesting fact about the Ouija board was that they did patent the Ouija board, you know, that product. But in order for them to secure the patent, they had to take a unit to the patent office and demonstrate that it actually did work. So apparently the clerk at the patent office, who they didn't know what his name was, said, well, have the Ouija board say what my name is. And miraculously, it was able to do that. And apparently the clerk was quite stunned with its ability and immediately granted them their patent. The Ouija board, so this guy started with one factory making Ouija board, and it developed into multiple factories. And so by 1944, the first 3 months or 4 months of 1944, this was incredible, they sold 50,000 units in just a piece of that year, 50,000 units. In 1967, Parker Brothers bought them out, and they sold 2 million units right away. And so obviously at this point in time in 1967, the use of the Ouija board had been going on for, you know, a good 70, 80 years, with people really not having an issue with it. But apparently the view toward the Ouija board changed, and that tool of divination changed drastically after the release of the Exorcist movie. Belief came because apparently Reagan, the girl, the main character that was possessed in The Exorcist, used a Ouija board, and that was how she became possessed. And so many religious groups kind of jumped on board and said, it's opening the door to evil, or it's Satan's tool to communicate with you. And so many religious groups, you know, jumped on that bandwagon and really started, you know, talking smack about the Ouija board. But then over time, and I found this really interesting, and I'm not quite sure how this came about, but even the paranormal community, so the ghost hunting community, are against and tell people don't use a Ouija board, which I don't really get. And we'll kind of, you'll understand why I'm making that comment in a minute. So to be honest with you, I mean, I don't really understand how a Ouija board manages to work. And I know that's going to sound really dumb because it's got the thing and it moves and it gives you letters and spells out words. So this was my experience with a Ouija board. So when I was in college, I lived in a very haunted house, and I've told this story on air. The house had been the town funeral parlor for many, many years. And of course, I didn't know that before I moved in, but the house is really haunted. I mean, really haunted. And so very close to the end of the school year, because it was a bunch of, we were all college students, and we were all moving out as soon as our lease was up, because we were just done with being there. One of my roommates got a Ouija board, and so we decided, well, we're out of here in 2 weeks. Let's just see what happens, because, you know, it's just 2 weeks, and, you know, if we're tormented by demons for a little while, you know, we're gone. And so there were three of us, and I am going to name drop, and I won't say last names. That it was me and Val and Patrick. And so we decided, because none of us, there's a whole trust factor that there's not somebody pushing the planchette around to get letters, or some kind of an answer or a message. So this was our philosophy, scientific, even then, that two of us did the planchette, and then the third person would be the observer. And the people who were doing the planchette had to do it with their eyes closed so that they could not intentionally guide it to any letter in particular, because you couldn't see. And so we started out the session with, can Patrick play? And the planchette went around and around and around and around and around. And then finally it got to yes. And then they asked, can Valerie play? And it went around and around and around and around. And finally it got to yes. Can Rita play? No. It was like, okay. So then we did it again. And it did the same thing. So we put it down and we tried it again a different day, like the next day, a couple days later, and it did the exact same thing. So we decided that I would leave the house and they would do the Ouija board. And I got really drunk that night, like really drunk. And they did get a bunch of information out of it. And that's all I know. But it was just interesting because I didn't feel like I was moving that thing around. And if you can't see where it's going, how do you know you're heading to yes or a letter or anything? Anyway, so that was my experience. So how that planchette moves, I don't know, but it does. It does, which is kind of weird and creepy. Okay. But with that said, there are many people that believe that if you interact with the Ouija board on any level, you touch it, you have it in your closet, whatever, that you're going to attract spirits to you, that if you use it, you're going to get an entity attached to you, and, then you're stuck with it for the rest of your lives. I mean, it's just, that's not really the case. People often have the belief that even if you go to a cemetery, that you're going to come home with some spirit attached to you. Now, I'm not going to say that a spirit won't necessarily follow you home and hang around your house for a couple of days, but they're not going to be attached to you, which is a whole separate concept. And if you want more information about attached entities, get my book, Dark Angels, An Insider's Guide to Ghost Spirits and Attached Entities. Now, there is some truth to the queeriness about it. So when they were using it back in the day, when they were doing the seances, they would sit there and they would ask for a specific individual to come forward and communicate with them, which I think is a maybe safer way to do it. Most people just ask random questions, and anybody that's going to be answering them is just that. Anybody, any random spirit that might happen to come along that wants to interact. So there's not really a whole lot of opportunity to filter on that. And so you just don't know who you're talking to. So this is the Dr. Rita opinion on it. So if you're using the Ouija board just to have a random combination, just to play around. I mean, when we were in Oswego, we were just playing around with it and weren't really looking to invest ourselves into what it had to say. The problem comes in is if you rely on it, if you sit there and think what it's saying is true and you're taking that in and you're allowing it to control or manipulate or have you make an opinion based on what it has to say. Because when you're in the ghost world, there are narcissists of the ghost world, and they will start off giving you great information and making you feel good, and then they will change and they will switch and they will become an attached entity. So random playing, one thing. If you're using it like automatic writing, or if you're constantly calling your spirit, your angels in to save you from some situation, because again, if your energy is high, if you're playing with it, your energy is high and you're well protected. But if you're in there investing in, what do I need to do? And what about this? And I'm really sad, and your energy is really low, then your guard is down, and it leaves you much more open and much more vulnerable to an entity attachment. And basically what you do is you end up inviting them in. And once they're invited in, and I mean invited into your energy space, not invited into the house and to give a message, but invited into your energy space, that's where problems can occur. So if you see a Ouija board, you don't need to cross the street and go around the corner. And if you want to play with it, but don't have it become part of your way of communicating with spirit, because that's where I think you can run into some issues. So, but if you have issues going on in your life and you would like to get some help or insights or answers, please do reach out to me on my webpage, soulhealer.com. And, we can kind of take a deeper dive into what's going on. Now, with the Ouija board, there were a lot of people that use them to communicate with spirits and communicate with dead people. I don't do dead people. If you've been watching this show a lot, I don't do dead people. So no dead people. And also, if you are interested in becoming a medical intuitive counselor, or certified energy medicine practitioner, please go to my webpage, appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, and download my free 50-page guide where you can jumpstart your intuition. And lastly, if you are listening to this show on Rumble or Substack or BitChute or Twitter or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, any place that you might be hearing this show, and you would like to come into the chat and get a free on-air psychic reading, please go to, the easiest place to go is to my YouTube channel, and that's Just Energy Radio on YouTube. That's 3 words, Just Energy Radio on YouTube. At 7 p.m. Central Time, hit the live link and join the fun and get a free reading. Sweet. Okay, so there are lots of comments in the chat room, and I'm going to start at the top, and we already had early people here, so let's just see what people have to say. And as I hit where somebody wants to get a reading, I will do that. See, like ERRT Radio is here super early. And he says, hi, Dr. Rita, happy Thursday. May I have a reading number 3, please? Thank you. ERRT Radio, you sure can have a reading number 3, please. Okay. All right, interesting. That's your card for today. So ERRT Radio, it's what you're showing me is that, and I'm going to say this is other people. I don't feel like it's life circumstances. I feel like it's other people are kind of interfering with your Zen. I get the impression that, there's what you want to do, and then there's what they think you should be doing, which you are not necessarily agreeing with. And they're being a little on the pushy side. You know, I feel like you have gotten really good at listening to your inner judgment and allow that to steer you and guide you. And I and I feel like it becomes annoying to you and irritating to you when you have these outside people who you don't necessarily trust. That might be a good way of saying it, telling you what you should be doing, and you just want them to kind of get out of your business. You know, so hold those boundaries up and stay true to yourself, because you're answering your own questions, and that should be the path you follow, because it'll leave you feeling congruent. As always, if what I'm saying is resonating with you, I'd love to get some feedback and hear the backstory on it. All right, Unar says good evening and says, I have to tell you, this bug is driving me crazy. Will you pick my number tonight? Unar, I am going to give you a 2 tonight. All right. Ooh. Here. There you go. Sorry, I didn't put Raylan's chair out. All right. Unar, that's your card for today. Come here, right here, right here, right here. Come on. That's my boy. So Unar, I get the impression that there's something, you know, and I'm kind of saying this in the most generic kind of way, that you have been pondering and trying to figure out what your direction is or how to move forward with it. I feel like it's been kind of floating around in your space, with just floating around and kind of driving you crazy because you didn't know where to start or what to do. I feel like that has all shifted. I feel like what you're supposed to be doing or where you're supposed to be going has achieved a new level of clarity for you. I feel like, you know, kind of like you had a little bit of a light bulb moment. And now, excuse me, and now that that energy has shifted, you are able to move forward. And I feel like the energy feels good. Now, there might have been some fear in there before, like, if I do this, what's going to happen? But I feel like you're past that and you're committed to this forward direction. And I feel like it's vibing with you. And I feel like that's the more important thing, that it's working for you and vibing with you, because good, bad, or indifferent, you're making the choice for yourself, and you're okay with living with whatever the outcome is, which I don't feel is going to be bad. Okay. Let's see. All right. It's Amy. Hi, Amy. And she says, hi, Dr. Rita. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday, Amy. And Christine says, hello, beautiful. May I have a reading number 2, please? Christine, you sure can have a reading number 2. All right. And that's your card for today. So Christine, when I look at your energy, the first thing that I'm noticing is that you're a little, I'm going to say this kindly, a little frustrated right now. I feel like yet another challenge has presented itself to you. I feel like you're a little tired of it, which is where the frustration is coming from. You know, and I just feel like you just want to have a break from stuff you just want to have it be like easy and smooth sailing for a while. I'm not worried that you are not going to be able to untangle this mess. I feel like, again, you know, that there's just frustration around it, that you just don't really want to deal with it again. Eckhart Tolle, in one of his books, I don't remember, talks about doing tasks, you know, and having like a higher vibration, which we talk about on the show a lot, having a higher vibration. And he says, you know, you can do things with joy and positivity, and you can do things with, you know, bad energy and negativity and fighting the whole way, you know. So one is going to take you higher, one is going to take you, you know, not high at all. And he says, you know, if you can't do it with joy, at least do it with neutrality. You know, so like when I think of that phrase, you know, the first thing that comes into my mind is I need to go mow my yard. Not necessarily my favorite thing on the planet, but I can go and achieve it in neutrality. And then when I'm done, I can look out at my yard and go, wow, that looks so much better now that it's mowed, and kind of put the positive energy back into it. You know, so if the frustration is really bringing your energy down, you know, try to get neutral to it. Try to have it be, okay, what do I need to do to get this done and bring it all back together? Okay, I hope that helps. And Amy says, a friend sent me the short you posted with my face. I hope that's okay, Amy. She said, hey, I know her. I hope that's okay, Amy. I don't even know how that happened, to be honest, because I don't see your face. And so, you know, there's a couple of them that it's done that on, and it's been a little bit of a mystery to me. But again, and if you don't want your face there, let me know, because I will take it down. But it has gotten a lot of hits. So, all right. And she says, can I please have a number 2? You sure can, Amy. You know, I hope your friend gave it a like, because it had you in it. But actually, the topic that I talked about in that piece of dialogue with you was actually really good, which is why I posted it. Like, I don't create them, AI creates them. So, and I just pick the ones that are the best. All right, that's your card for today. Okay. So Amy, I'm pretty, yeah, I think it was last week I talked about how you were leveling up and moving into this new energy vibration. Like, you passed the test and now you're moving into this new vibration. And what they're sharing with me and what they want me to communicate to you is, if you're feeling a little sensitive right now, if you're feeling a little more reserved, you know, you want to just kind of hide and not be around other people's energy. You know, if you're feeling a little timid, whatever, you know, whatever this kind of weird sensation you might be experiencing, it's part of the leveling up process. Your body has not caught up with the energy shift. And so this is how it is reflecting that energy shift. So you haven't gone back, you know, this is actually a good thing. They're telling me that this is going to last for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then things should kind of even back out, and your body should be more attuned and more in vibration of the new vibrational pattern that you're supposed to be exhibiting with this energy shift, because you leveled up. tell me that totally makes sense to you and that's what's going on. Because I used your picture in that video and everything. All right. Ann Lee. Hi, Ann Lee. She says, hi, Dr. Rita. May I have a number 2 reading, please? Thank you very much. And you sure can, Ann Lee. Okay. And that's your card for today. Okay, interesting, Anne. I feel like there is, I'm going to say a loss that you're experiencing in your life. I feel like not that there was a fight and you're not talking to each other and it was a relationship breakup, but that someone has energetically moved on, whether they have physically moved or there is just more separation between you and this other person. I feel like you're not quite sure what to do with it, whether you should kind of chase after them and be a little clingy, or you should just allow them to have their space and go on. I feel like the separation was their choice, or this distance, this energetic distance was their choice, and not necessarily your choice. And so if that's their choice, then maybe you need to just let them have that. And I'm going to say, it's like, even though it kind of bothers you, like it bothers you intellectually, I'm not feeling like you're all that super broke up about it either. Hope that makes sense. So it's all in divine plan. How's that? Okay. It's Ohura. Hi, Ohura. Hi, everyone. Yay, I made it today. Yay, you made it. Okay, and then Karen says, hi, Dr. Rita. Hope you had a good week. Can I get a reading number 2? Thank you. You sure can. And again, guys, if these readings are making sense to you, I'd like to, hear your feedback. And also, if you know anyone that could, use coming to this show and getting a reading or hanging out, one of the things that happens is when somebody sets an energy, the other people in their space have the opportunity to match their energy. And I feel like this is an opportunity for all of you to kind of be in the same vibration, and I try to make it be a good vibration and a fun vibration for everyone to experience. And so whether you're getting a reading or not, which I hope you would get a reading, I feel like anyone that's watching or interacting is experiencing some of that Zen as well. At least that's my hope. Okay, so Karen, that's your card. All right, Karen, I'm struggling a little bit to understand what you're showing me. Okay, so the picture you're showing me is that there's kind of 2 of you. And so there's like the main you, and then there's this other you that's a little off center, not in alignment. That is kind of sitting in some anxiety. Okay, interesting, because I went and stepped into that other body to figure out what that was all about. And so when I did that, and I'm like, okay, well, that's where I got the anxiety. And I was like, okay, so why are you not integrated? Why are you separate? But I feel like there's something that's happened to you recently that you are processing. I don't want to say that you're ruminating about it, although you might be. But I feel like you are looking at this situation or this person and trying to decide what you're going to do with them, or do with it. And so you're not ready to release it. You're not really ready to move forward on it because you haven't made a decision about it yet. Okay, I'm going to add this too. And when I sit there and look at it, I feel like there's some pain, some hurt feelings tied to it as well. And that is kind of interfering with you making a decision one way or the other. And so I'm going to say this from a totally different perspective. If your feelings got hurt, and it really wasn't anything that you did, but this person was just kind of a jerk, then maybe you need to look at that, and value, well, my feelings are hurt. And do I want to keep participating in this situation because my feelings are hurt? And sometimes our feelings get hurt because it bounces off of our own trauma and our own junk. But I'm going to say I'm not getting that from you. I'm feeling like there was almost a little bit of betrayal that happened with this other person, and you're not really sure what to do with that. But maybe you just need to own this is what happened and accept it on the surface, and either have a conversation about it or walk away from it. And value yourself that much versus trying to figure out how you can fix it in yourself so that you can bring their energy back into your energy space. Woo! All right, Karen, you really have to tell me if this is making sense to you and if I'm hitting, because that was kind of a long, intense one. Okay. All right, Master Player is here, and he says, evening and number one. You sure can have a number one Master Player. Okay, and that's your card for today. Okay. All right. So I hope I'm interpreting, I do a lot of interpreting with energy here. But I'm feeling like you're feeling a little bit bad on the inside, a little bit insecure would be a good word to put with it. I feel like there's something sparkly and new, and you want to go for it or you want to be like it. But when you look at yourself, it just brings up all of this less than kind of feelings, like I'm not that person, I'm less than, and I'm not really digging it, to be honest with you. Maybe the point of this is just for me to bring it up so that you can make the choice to not be in that vibration and to shift your inner thinking, turn that inner critic off and own the fact that you are good and you are in your highest potential. Okay? All right. And Ricky says, good Thursday evening, Dr. Rita. Thank you so much. Your hair looks absolutely stunningly amazing. Thank you, Ricky. May I have a number 3, please? Thank you. Okay, so Ricky, I'm going to just do a couple of extra shuffles just to clear the cards. And then I'll do your 3. Okay. All right, Ricky. Okay, and that's your card for today. So, Ricky, when I look at what's going on around you, I feel like, okay, the best way I can describe this was that you had been feeling pretty stuck, and that stuckness has popped. The picture you keep showing me, okay, and it's kind of a humorous picture. So, when you have a ketchup bottle, like the red one with the cone top, and you went to go get ketchup and it wasn't coming out, and you shake it and then you squeeze it really hard toward your French fries, and like a little wad of dried up ketchup comes out the end, and then it goes. I kind of feel like that's what's going on with you right now, that your energy was kind of backed up, but now there's this forward thrust, kind of like that ketchup. I mean, it will equalize and it'll all be fine, but it's just kind of funny because that's really where it's at right now. Might be a bit disorienting and might feel like a bit of a mess, but in the end, you're unstuck, and that's the more important thing. Anne says, nice picture of you in your intro, Dr. Rita. Thank you, Anne. And it's Mr. B and Friends. Hey, Mr. B and Friends. And then ERRT Radio says, I will not mess with the Ouija board. They didn't bother me, but, there's so much bad energy about them that I even shy away from them. It's Terrence. Hey, Terrence. Nice to see you tonight. Marco, thank you, Marco. You're here. I was wondering if you were going to come. I appreciate you. Marco says, Rita hair, lips, skull shirt, fab. Well, I was talking about Ouija board, so I needed to have like some kind of dead thing on. All right, Mr. B. John Wilkes. Hey, John Wilkes, hiding in the background. And he says, never had a Ouija board move on its own. But were your hands on it? See, I've only did it, with those people, and it moved. I mean, our fingers were just barely touching it. And the person I was doing it with, we were both kind of freaking out because it was moving. So I don't know. Unar says, I made my own board once long ago. It worked well. Well, cool with that. Christine says, I'm glad I'm learning about this because I wanted to use one, but unsure how to use it. Oh, cool. Ahura says, hello, Dr. Rita. You look very nice. Thank you, Ahura. Your shirt is matched with your topic, intentional. I like when we can see your eyes. Well, when my bangs get so long, I'm like, cut them. Thanks for the talk and sharing. May I have a reading number 2? Thank you very much. And you sure can have a number 2. right. Ooh, Uhura, that's your card for today. Interesting. Okay, so usually when this card comes up, it's about hiding or discord of some kind. And Uhura, when I look at your energy today, I feel like it has been like that. I feel like it has been like that, but you really weren't aware that that's how it was. I feel like you become more mindful of that dynamic within yourself, and I feel like you have internally made the decision that you don't want to be that anymore. You don't want to be that person anymore. And so it's going to be interesting to see, how things move forward, how things shift, how things change. And Ohura and everyone else listening, if you have something like this where you're going through a transition or you're going through a phase and you need some insight or guidance, reach out to me, soulhealer.com. Okay. And then Don, hey, Don, he says, hi, Dr. Rita, I'm late, but I need a reading, please. And your volume is very low here. All right. I have zero control of volume, Don. All right. So, Don, I'm doing a 2. Tonight seemed to be a 2 night. All right, you didn't give me a number, so I'm giving you a 2. Okay, Don, that's your card for today. Okay, so I get the impression, Don, that you're kind of in a worry phase right now, that something happened. I feel, if I am a little more specific about that, I get the impression that something happened and now you're doubting yourself and worrying about the whole situation, about yourself, the whole situation. I get the impression that your inner critic is all turned on. If that is the case, take a moment and acknowledge that. It's not, it's not whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. And it would also be a good idea, not in this moment, but in a day or in a couple of days, to stop and maybe do some journaling and reflect back on what was going on, what inside of you, because I feel like the situation was pretty innocuous. What inside of you, what belief, what concept got activated, so that if it gets activated again, you can go, oh, I'm being, like this happened and I'm being triggered. People, as an example, people that have abandonment issues, and they're in a relationship and then the partner goes out of town or is not calling for some reason. I don't mean like for days and days and days, but for an extended period of time, it can trigger their abandonment wounds and make them start thinking, oh, they don't like me, what's going on? They're having an affair, and bring up all of this crap versus going, okay, so I haven't heard from them. And then stopping it there and going, oh, but I bet my abandonment wounds are being activated and I should just acknowledge that. And because a lot of the times it will just kind of cut it off at the pass without it getting into this whole big thing. So a couple of days on and do some reflecting. Okay, please. ERRT Radio says, very interesting take on it. Thank you, ERRT Radio. Vesta, hey girl. And she says, hi Rita, hope all is well. Number one, please. You sure can, Vesta. All righty, and that's your card for today. Okay, so when I look at your energy, the first thing that I'm noticing is, and I'm going to say it's this weight on your shoulders. Now, I'm not sure if it's, and I'm going to say physical weight, like I just feel like it's just pressing down. And so I don't know if there's something functional that's going on. It's a little hard for me to separate here. And whether you really need to like do some stretching, do some exercising, and really work these muscles, shoulder shrugs, to work these muscles here to loosen up that tightness, or whether there's something emotionally and energetically that makes you feel like you're carrying around the weight of the world. And it could be a combination of the two. But I am going to stick with the, you need to move and you need to like open up and get this part of you to relax, because you will feel better. That's where you're holding all of your tension and you're holding all of your stress right now. Okay, I hope that helps. Okay. Dawn likes my shirt. All right, Claudette's here and she says, stop that. You know, it has this thing that says hide current comment, hide new comments, and it's just like, you know, you're all in the way of me clicking on it. Okay, and Claudette said, number 3, please, Rita. You sure can, Claudette. Okay, and that's your card for today. All right, it's Lozinger time, so hang on one second, Claudette. Okay. It's interesting because I'm really, okay, it is very rare for me to sit there and try to read somebody and not get anything right away, but I'm not getting anything right away from you. So do me a favor and take a breath. You know, so is everybody tired? I mean, I just feel this weary kind of heaviness around everybody, and you too, Claudette. You know, and maybe that's why I'm not really picking up a lot, because there's a piece of you that would just like to curl up in a ball and go to sleep right now. You know, almost like there's too much going on and you can't keep up with it. You know, so maybe that's what you need to do, is to just rest and take care of yourself and get some of your energy back. You know, put some money back into that bank and, you know, have it be a me weekend where you are just loving yourself. And I hope that that makes sense, and that's really what's going on, because it's very rare that I'm not like blasted with something. But I look at you and you're just like, you know, and that's it. And there's like, you're not really emanating, because you're just like wanting to just sleep. ERRT Radio says, wow, thank you. Christine says, thank you, makes sense. I have been irritated lately and I do need a break. You do need a break. Jeannie, I have been thinking a lot about you, girl. And, you know, I don't even think I have your phone number. So, but I wanted to talk to you. We need to talk. We need to talk. Message me on Facebook or something. Hi, Rita, can I pick a number? Okay, so Jeannie, we're almost to the end. And so I'm just going to pick a number and I'm going to give you a 3. Because by the time I get to the bottom, the show is going to be done. So you're going to get number 3 and you're going to be my last reading for tonight. Because it's you, Jeannie. Okay, and that's your card for today. So, Jeannie, I get the impression that there's some confusion in your space. I feel like I don't want to say that you're walking on eggshells because that would not be correct, but I feel like you are not sure what you need to do in order to take care of yourself appropriately. I feel like you have some choices, you know, and I'm going to say that this has to do with like relationship, living space, like life in general. And I feel like the choices that are being presented to you right now are all not great, or you're not digging any of them. My suggestion is maybe stop trying to figure them out. Maybe stop trying to justify them. Maybe stop trying to work them so that they become something that they're never going to become except in your mind, and just get quiet, because the right choice will come to you and you'll be able to follow that one forward. Okay? But do message me. All right. Unar says, reading was good tonight. I can relate and thank you. Last week was more like a premonition because the next day it happened. Thanks for that one too. Yay. And Louise says, thanks, Dr. Rita. In a different way, it makes sense. Okay, great. Amy says, much gratitude. Yes, I understand the message. I've been feeling a bit weird, hitting me physically as well, off balance, and the post was fine with me. Heading to the tip jar. Thank you. Yeah, so if you guys are, you know, getting good readings and you want to, you can leave me a little something in my tip jar. You can go to soulhealer.com/live, soulhealer.com/live. There's a PayPal link as well as a shopping cart that you can leave me a little something in appreciation. I'd appreciate it. All right. Anne says, thanks for doing this each week, Dr. Rita. You are so welcome. Karen says, wow, Dr. Rita, you are so on point. This all took place right before the show, and yes, I'm sitting in big feelings. Okay. Yay. Karen says, thank you. Master Player says, sums me up of what's been happening tonight. Thank you. You're welcome. O'Hara says, thanks again. Your reading was to the point, and I reached out to her, but I will reach out through your website too. Blessings to you always, O'Hara. And then Marco says, Rita, amazing you made it almost an hour. Almost an hour, what? I'm always here an hour, and actually I'm over an hour. I just want to like get through these comments. Thanks, no more readings. I'm just reading comments. O'Hara says, thanks again. Your reading was to the point. I hide myself to be careful and not risk what is valuable. I reach out to her. Oh, I already read that one. Don says, yes, you're in the ballpark on my feelings lately, but it's about my past. Thank you. Past, present, same thing. Vesta says, it does. Thank you, darling. Be blessed always. Claudette says, yay, thank you. And then says, totally what I'm doing. Excellent. And then she says, makes sense. I officially decided to end my 9-year business and I'm exhausted. Ooh, interesting. And then Master Player says, great show and great hair. Thank you. Denise says, will do. All right. Anthony says, sorry I'm late, but I'm happy you're still doing this, but I'm not really doing it, Tony. So you just have to come back next week earlier. And then ERRT Radio says, thank you, Dr. Rita. Great readings and lessons. You are so welcome. So, guys, it is 2 minutes after 8 o'clock, and I'm going to go. So, till next time, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Thursday Night Live. Be blessed.